Welcome back to my channel and a very special welcome if you're new here. My name is Jen. I'm a certified weight loss and nutrition coach who has lost and maintained a 140-pound weight loss. And today we're going to revisit a topic that I get a lot of questions about. I've done videos on this in the past, and there seems to be a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of you want a little bit more clarification, and that is on visceral fat. What is it? How do I get rid of it? And why is it so dangerous? So today we're going to deep dive a bit more into visceral fat. I'm going to talk to you about what it is and give you some honest, easy ways to get rid of it. So if you're excited, give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not, turn your bell on because I upload new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Down in the description box, I will have nutrition coaching. Highly, highly recommend personalized macros and calories. That is what I follow to lose and maintain a 140-pound weight loss, as well as one-on-one coaching for questions, accountability, or to talk with me directly. Links, discounts to my favorite things are also down below for you. So let's talk about visceral fat. What is it? Why is it dangerous? And how do we get rid of it? Let's first define what is visceral fat. Visceral fat is belly fat found deep within your abdominal cavity. It surrounds important organs, including your stomach, liver, and intestines. It's different than subcutaneous fat, which is fat below the surface of your skin. Visceral fat is actually more dangerous to your health. Diet and exercise are the best ways to prevent the buildup of visceral fat. Visceral fat is often called active fat because it plays an active role in how your body actually functions. Too much visceral fat can often lead to very, very serious health concerns like diabetes, heart disease, and even stroke. So what's the difference between visceral fat and subcutaneous fat? Again, subcutaneous fat is the fat found under the surface of your skin. So if you take your skin and pull and pinch, that is subcutaneous fat. So although this isn't ideal and we want to limit the amount of subcutaneous fat, it isn't as dangerous as visceral fat because it sits under the surface of our skin. It doesn't surround our vital organs. Visceral fat is behind your abdominal wall. You can't actually see visceral fat on your body where you can see subcutaneous fat. You can pinch and actually know the amount of subcutaneous fat, where visceral fat is internal. A lot of people will say, well, how do I know if I have visceral fat? Is there something I can look for in my body that indicates if I have more visceral fat than if I am somebody that carries more visceral fat? A growing belly is the most obvious sign of visceral fat, but can indicate subcutaneous fat as well. Studies show if you have a pot belly or are more apple-shaped than pear-shaped, you may have more visceral fat. So by looking at your body and your body shape, that can often be an indicator of your visceral fat. Now, truly the only way to know how much visceral fat you have is to get a body scan. There's things like DEXA scans out. I had a DEXA scan about a year ago. It did show me my visceral fat. I was so grateful that mine was very low, which makes me really happy considering I was well over 300 pounds. And a DEXA scan will give you your body fat percentages versus muscle, including visceral fat. There's some other scans and things you can have at your local doctor's office that can give you your exact visceral fat. Now, what causes it? What is the cause of visceral fat? Obviously, genetics do play a part. Genetics play a part in whether we are inherently thin or overweight, whether we have an addiction to food or don't have an addiction to food. Genetics play a big part, as well as environmental factors. But genetics are going to play the biggest part in how your body actually stores fat. Again, are you apple-shaped or are you pear-shaped? But like I said, environmental factors play an issue as well, especially what is your activity level? What types of foods do you typically consume? If you have an inactive lifestyle and you eat a lot of processed carbohydrates, you're more likely to store excess visceral fat. And the last thing that can contribute to the storage of visceral fat is stress. When we are stressed out, it increases our level of cortisol, triggers your body to store more visceral fat. So between genetics, stress, and environmental factors, this is the biggest contributing factor to how much visceral fat is stored on your body. Like I said, you can have a DEXA scan, which is going to give you an accurate amount of visceral fat on your body, but there's some really simple things that you can do to measure how much you may be storing. Visceral fat takes up about 10% of your total body fat. So whatever your body fat percentage, let's say 30, 10% of that is made up of visceral fat. So 20% is subcutaneous fat, 10% on average is visceral fat. If your body fat percentage is higher than what's normal or recommended, there's a good chance that your visceral fat is also higher than what's normal or recommended. You can take your waist measurement, wrap a tape measure around your waist just above your hip bones. For women, 35 inches or more means you're at risk for health problems stemming from visceral fat. For men, it is 40 inches or more. Waist to hip ratio, measure your waist size and your hip size. Wrap a tape measure around the widest part of your hips. Divide your waist size by your hip size. A waist to hip ratio higher than 0.85% in women and 0.9 in men indicates abdominal obesity. You can also look at your BMI or your body mass index. BMI measures your body fat based on your height and weight. A BMI of 30 or more in men indicates you may be overweight and could have a higher level of visceral fat. And lastly is your waist to height ratio. Divide your waist size by your height. A healthy ratio is no more than 0.5 in men and women. Some healthcare providers prefer the waist height ratio. Other methods aren't as accurate at distinguishing between visceral fat and subcutaneous fat. Now, one side note on BMI, if you are someone that maintains and carries a lot of muscle, your BMI is going to be higher because the BMI chart doesn't differentiate between muscle and fat. So out of these four things, I would say that the BMI is your least most accurate measurement of everything. Your healthy weight, your goal weight, and your visceral fat. I would look at the other three measurements a lot more closely. And again, have a DEXA scan if it's available in your area. So how do you get rid of visceral fat? Now that we know that we carry it, at least 10% of our body fat is going to be visceral fat, and that is a healthy percentage. What if you are in excess of that? What are some ways to rid that visceral fat? Number one is going to be exercise. You should exercise for at least 30 minutes a day. This can include cardio or strength training or a mix of both, including HIIT, high intensity interval training. Those workouts cycle between bursts of intense effort and quick recovery. HIIT offers resistance and aerobic training, which can help you burn fat faster. You can also eat a healthy diet, including lean proteins, whole grains, low-fat dairy, fruits, and vegetables. Try to limit trans fats, refined sugars, sodium, and processed foods. Eating a lower carb diet can also help reduce visceral fat by training your body to burn fat as fuel rather than carbohydrates. You can try intermittent fasting that involves going through periods of eating and not eating. It may help reduce your visceral fat. Make sure you're getting good sleep hygiene. Not getting enough sleep may increase your risk for additional visceral fat. Shoot for 7 hours per night. Reduce your stress. Stress activates a hormone in your body called cortisol. More cortisol activates your body's fight or flight response, which triggers the storage of more visceral fat. Try yoga or meditation to lower your stress level. And lastly, just limit your alcohol intake. Drinking too much alcohol can increase the amount of visceral fat in your body that your body stores. And a lot of people say, well, is it hard to lose visceral fat? Actually, visceral fat is easier to lose than subcutaneous fat. So that's good news. That means that we can shed the really scary, unhealthy fat quicker than we can shed the fat just under the surface of our skin. So hopefully that helps explain visceral fat a little bit more, how to get rid of visceral fat, how to know how much you have on your body. Because it is the unhealthy, scary fat, it's important to do your best to be at that 10% ratio of visceral fat. Again, have a conversation with your doctor, see if your insurance covers a DEXA scan. You can also utilize those other tools to figure out what is your waist to hip ratio. Do you have a larger than average waist for a woman or man? All of those things can indicate overall health, overall healthy weight, as well as visceral fat. Let me know down below, what are your thoughts on this? Is it something that you've thought about? Are these going to help you figure out where you fall in visceral fat? Let me know everything down below. And if you enjoyed today's video, give it a big thumbs up. Again, subscribe, turn your bell on, get your macros and calories done. How else do you know what to eat to reach your health and weight loss goals? Ridding that visceral fat included. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.